Good evening. I would like to call to order this regular meeting of the Encinitas City Council on Wednesday, September 20th, 2023 at 6 p.m. And if the clerk would please call the roll.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Blackwell?
Here.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Here.
Councilmember Hinsey is absent. Sorry. Deputy Mayor Lyons?
Here.
Mayor Krantz.
Here.
Record will show that all members of the City Council, with the exception of Councilmember Hinsey, are present this evening.
Okay. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance is going to be led by a couple of fifth graders from La Costa Heights Elementary School. And their names are Tucker Gann and Dylan Jacobson. And if you two could come up to the middle over there. And then if you'd all rise and join me and them in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. And they were here tonight because of the proclamation that I'm going to present for Native American Day on Friday. So I'm going to. Thank you. And as I mentioned last week, I am of European ancestry. And it's one of those things that, I ended up here in Encinitas just by quite a bit of luck. My parents moved here when I was 9 months old. I'm very proud to have grown up here. But I have only, over the last couple of decades, come to appreciate the contributions and the history of this land. And so tonight I wanted to present this proclamation recognizing California Native American Day, which is on Friday, September 22nd. And to receive this proclamation will be Jenny Alto, the Secretary Treasurer of the San Pasqual Band of Mission Indians. Thank you for coming up. I'm going to read this proclamation. And it says, whereas California Native American Day is celebrated every year on the fourth Friday of September, and this year on September 22nd, 2023, and whereas the City of Encinitas recognizes the importance of acknowledging and honoring the rich history, culture, and contributions of California Native Americans, and whereas California Native American Day provides an opportunity to celebrate the heritage, traditions, and resilience of California Native American cultures that have shaped our region and our state. And whereas it is important to acknowledge the enduring contributions and sacrifices made by California Native Americans in the pursuit of justice, equity, and equality, environmental protection, and advancement of society through their rich traditions, art, language, medicine, and more. And whereas recognizing California Native American Day will foster a greater understanding and appreciation of the historical and contemporary issues faced by California Native American communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Tony Krantz, Mayor of the City of Encinitas, along with all the City Council members, do hereby proclaim September 22nd, 2023 as Native American Day, and I call upon all residents, organizations, and schools to commemorate and celebrate the rich and diverse cultures of all California Native Americans. Dated this 20th day of September, 2023. And for me, it's mentioned in this proclamation of language reminded me of the Iwo Jima reunions that I attended with my father, who was a Marine in World War II. And many of those events included Navajo code talkers who were very instrumental in the success of our military in the Pacific. Their role was really important, and the Marines that showed up for those Iwo Jima reunions definitely were there to honor them for their efforts. And it was one of those things that they made that contribution, and then they came back to a country that didn't always treat them with the greatest of respect. So I think it's important that we acknowledge their contributions here in our community. On tonight's agenda, we have our first conversation about financing the acquisition of a piece of property that is bordered by Bataquitos Lagoon. Over 2,000 years ago, there were Native Americans that were on that land and working, to feed their families from the resources, the rich resources that come from that lagoon. So with that, I will turn it over to you to say a few words.
Thank you very much. On behalf of San Pasqual Band of Mission Indians, I am honored to accept this proclamation from the City of Encinitas recognizing California Native American Day. In San Pasqual Valley is currently located in Valley Center, but its traditional lands and home is San Pasqual Valley. The current San Pasqual Reservation was established by presidential decree in 1910, and the San Pasqual is one of the 13 bands that make up the Kumeyaay Nation in San Diego County. The reservation currently encompasses roughly 3,500 acres and is home to over 2,400 people and continues to grow and prosper. Again, I would like to thank the City of Encinitas, and we look forward to continuing to work with you now and in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Next, we move on to oral communications.
Mr. Mayor, we do have 11, and just a reminder to the speakers, you have 3 minutes, and this time is for items that are not listed on the agenda. I'll call you 3 at a time. The first is Raul Villamar, followed by Scott Campbell, and then Sandra Anderson.
My name is Raul Villamar. I am the owner of the Encinitas Barbers. I've been coming here a long time now, and I'm getting tired of coming in every. There is still, we haven't heard anything about the agenda when they're going to talk about the parking. They're telling me that now they're going until December 31st. We also have a lot of people that in front of Queen Eileen's. There's still parking barriers in front of it. In front of Miss Kim's. Why do they need barriers in front of their businesses? There's nothing there. They don't feed anybody. They don't have any food. Miss Kim wanted to talk to you, but she's got that. She can't speak English that well, so she wanted me to talk and ask you, why can't she put something out in front of hers? Because she wants to put clothes out in the front. My brother owns a company where they do all the concession stands. Can I go put something in front of mine, barbershop in front of Moto on 101? Can I put up there? He sells funnel cakes, candy corn, he sells kettle corn, and all that kind of stuff. Are we allowed to do that? Everybody else is not allowed to do all these kind of stuff. This morning, I came to work in front of right behind all the restaurants back there, which Roxy's and all those, the ones that have all their parking spots in the back. They're doubly parking there. Is that street parking, or is it an alley, or can anybody park it back there? There's no. I talked to the Ace. They don't know. So everybody's parking back there. It's hard to get out through that alley there because the trucks are parked there, and we can't get out. I got pictures of customers, my customers trying to find a parking spot back there, but they can't get back there because there's no parking. We want to know if the agenda is coming up soon. You said that one of my customers came in this morning from England, and he looked at me and he says, "Where do I park?" I go, "I don't know. Park up at City Hall like they told me to." That street, he's an older guy. How is he going to walk up that street? The city of Oceanside has a shuttle that shuttles people around. I haven't heard Encinitas have one. Oceanside, Carlsbad's going to start one. Why can't Encinitas come up with something to take care of all the customers? This is getting out of hand, and now we didn't hear anything about people going to, you were on the news the other night, you guys had it where you can't, they're taking down all the parking from Vulcan. Does anybody know about the Vulcan parking? We didn't know. So now customers were told to tell them, hey, go park at Vulcan. When is that gonna happen? And I see that they're having a problem there, and you guys were shut down until they can figure something out. Mr. Chambers is gonna come up next to talk to you about all the other stuff that I wanted to talk to you. He has pictures and I have pictures. Next week, I will bring the pictures in. I have a memory. I'm talk to this gentleman and see if I can put it down on either a CD or memory
Yes,
stick.
okay, thank you. And the stretch of Vulcan that you saw on the news is a long ways away from your shop. You don't want people parking there.
Yeah,
That's
well,
miles
yeah.
away.
Are they gonna walk? Are they gonna walk here from down there? Or are you gonna shuttle them down for me?
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Scott Campbell, followed by Sandra Anderson, and then Terry Ann Skelly.
Good evening, Council. My name is Scott Campbell. I live in District 1 of Encinitas, and tonight I'm representing Encinitas Citizen Review Panel. And our topic tonight is, I guess maybe there's no show tonight, is unintended consequences. I'm not sure what to do here.
Pause the.
Warren, do you have Scott Campbell's PowerPoint?
Okay, all right. Well, I can talk anyways. That's fine. Probably be faster this way. So unintended consequences. I ask for the city council to have increased oversight on project planning and in particular maintenance of projects. There's been dozens of CIP projects and we build them and there's nothing in the plans that specify how we're gonna maintain them and keep them fixed. I could talk about B-Cycle. They cleaned them. They did not clean the areas around them. It's absolutely disgusting. There's residue still from last winter. It's still on the streets. It's what do I say? Disgusting public health standard. Public health. It's display of public health. It's horrible. Let's talk about the NCT parking lot right across the street, literally across the street. Again, nobody has cleaned this since last winter. Now it's NCTD. It's not city. I don't really care. It's absolutely disgusting, the filth. And we just did the cigarette ban. You should see how many cigarettes and cartons of cigarettes. What a joke. Why did we even do it? Why? To look good? This is way better than my show, actually. I'm going to talk about streetscape. The beautiful streetscape, the landscaping, everything's really nice. But you know what? That grass on the edge of the bike path is taking up, I'm going to say 30% at least of the bike path lane. Was that the intent? I don't think so, but that's the reality. This is what I'm talking about. We have to go through these projects after the fact and make sure they're still working. The bike path is dangerous, pushing people into the road. We always talk about that. We're pushing people in the road. Okay, let's talk about pushing people in the road. There's going to be people who are talking about how great it is on the Vulcan, and we're doing something. I get it. Go take a look. The slopey. We removed tumbleweeds for this walkway. The worker trucks, they're going to be gone, but they're there. They're parking right over it. They don't care. I guess there were some guys getting towed yesterday. That's what I heard. I didn't see any, but I saw it. I've been there 4 or 5 times in the last week. There's not been one walker. I've been the only person around. What it did is it pushed the cars onto the road. the lane diet. I get it. Now the car is right next to it. Any car that opens their door is at risk of a car hitting it. The biker now is forced, literally forced on the road. We talk about churros. That's an option. Now it is not an option. I have to ride my bike on the road. I don't like riding that stretch. I'm gonna go back to Sheridan and do jumps off of the speed bumps, which is another issue we're gonna get to later. Back to the Vulcan. In April, the city staff, the city engineer said, drainage is an issue. Drainage was a big issue last year. It caused a lot of grief. Everybody was tired. I get it. We need to solve these drainage issues before we get too far. I've got 2 seconds, so again, thank you for your time. Bye.
My name is Sandra Anderson, and I live on Via Palacio in Encinitas. I was out of town last week, and I couldn't be here when the city council chose to add 2 new apartment complexes to the zone that I live in, the permit parking zone. We have 1 apartment complex now, we have 3. I just want to make 3 comments or points since I wasn't here, could not be here last week. Point 1. If the mayor wants to amend the code to include a noticing distance greater than the municipal code states, please go through the proper process. Propose an amendment, direct staff to come up with proposed language, and hear the item in front of the public so that they can be heard and the entire council can vote on it. We do not have a strong mayor form of government, and changing the code from the dais is improper, and the mayor should not be making unilateral decisions. Second, no one, and I repeat, no one, was left out of the parking permit notification as it was claimed. 500 feet is the noticing limit, and that was properly observed. Additionally, neighborhoods that the mayor wants to include are well outside the 500 municipal code limit. Again, if you want to change the code, please go through the proper process. Do not reopen an already decided item without the rules of code behind it. Third, and perhaps most importantly, as staff has admitted, the reason they do not support establishing parking permit neighborhoods is that they set precedents. The city is counting on allowing overflow parking in neighborhoods citywide to cover the lack of on-site parking they're requiring on high-density projects. Parking permits would interfere with these overflow plans.
Next is Terry Ann Skelly, followed by Carol Heil, Diana Nunes, and then Rob Fleener.
Good evening, Mayor Krantz and City Council. My name is Terry Ann Skelly. I'm a coordinator with San Diego Alliance, and I work with a diverse group of high school students who study public health and environmental policies that affect their lives. I came tonight to discuss and to ask City Council to consider sending a letter of support to Governor Newsom regarding AB 1207, entitled the Cannabis Candy Child Safety Act, advanced by Assemblywoman Irwin. AB 1207 has passed through the Assembly and Senate appropriations and is currently on the governor's desk for consideration and his signature. As you know, you originally sent a letter when AB 1207 began its legislation journey through the committee, and I thank you for that. Now educators and parents would appreciate a second step and send a letter to the governor asking him to sign it. We are faced with 4 marijuana storefronts in Encinitas in very visible locations in downtown Encinitas and on El Camino Real. The important legislation will clearly prohibit marijuana products, food, packaging, and marketing that are attractive to children and youth and would be sold at these storefronts. We know 85% of youth who vape marijuana, which is the product of First Choice, a flavored marijuana vape, is usually packaged with enticing youth coverings. This bill is supported by dozens of organizations such as California State PTA, California American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Emergency Physicians, and the Public Health Institute. Dr. Lynn Silver, pediatrician and director at the Public Health Institute, stated that, and I quote, "The cannabis marketplace does not need to market products that imitate leading candies and junk foods or their cartons. The California legislature has sent a clear message that we need to create a safer cannabis market that starts putting kids' health above profit. We need to urge Governor Newsom to sign it and enforce it. The bill will honor the unfulfilled promise and intent of Prop 64 to keep marijuana and its products out of the hands and bodies of our children." Thank you for your consideration.
Carol Heil, Diana Nunes, Rob Fleener, and then Elena Thompson.
Hi. Oh, yes, can you load up my PowerPoint, please? So I didn't know that we couldn't donate time, so Diana's going to pick up the second part of the presentation for me. Okay. Good evening, council members and Mayor Krantz. 2 to 3 weeks ago, I left my home on Coral Cove Way to travel down Vulcan, and I'd had it. It was the end of the month, and the end of the month ritual had occurred, dumping on Vulcan. Residents of Northwest Leucadia have endured this dumping ground for far too long. It's become acceptable and a part of the Leucadian culture. After submitting an email to the city with many of the following photos, I received replies basically stating that it is an enforcement issue with the Sheriff's Department. I'm tired of this response. I have contacted the Sheriff's Department many times, and they have done their due diligence and cited these infractions. It's time that all entities work together and clean up this part of town: city government, law enforcement, and residents. When I think of living in Leucadia, I try to think about what other parts of the city endure this culture of neglect and inequity. I can't think of anywhere, not Alevinhain, not Cardiff, not El Camino Real, not Old Encinitas, and not Encinitas Ranch area. Let's think about it. Leucadia is a diamond in the rough, and it could be the beautiful northern gateway to Encinitas. With that being said, it is currently experiencing a massive influx of new development, including hotels, apartment complexes, and soon to be over 60 single-family homes. But Leucadia is sorely lacking in infrastructure and to support this development. And our north-south corridor, Vulcan Avenue, is a wasteland that is both unsafe and unsightly. So let's look at what we got. Okay, when I was developing this PowerPoint, I realized I mistitled the following slides. I should have titled them "What Vulcan Must Not Be," because Vulcan must not be what it currently is, because we are not a recreational storage. It's not going, there we go. Vulcan is not a commercial parking lot. Vulcan is not a city dump. Sorry, I don't know what happened here. It kind of went forward. Okay, you keep going. It's not an a repair shop. And it's not an overnight campground. Okay, you ready? You're gonna start right here,
Okay,
and then you're gonna do these two
right,
slides.
great.
Okay?
You can do. Northwest Leucadians are encouraged by the maintenance project that is currently underway. With changing the curb stops and working on vegetation abatement, we're hoping it will provide more space to walk and clean up the unsightliness of the east side of Vulcan. Additionally, hopefully residents will choose to keep Vulcan cleaner. Our fear is that that's a long way away. The culture and habits have been endured for so long that it will take an all-out effort from the city, residents, and law enforcement to change our mindset and not accept our bad habits of tolerance and neglect. Last week, there was a CBS News clip with an Encinitas resident stating many opinions and falsehoods of the current maintenance project. I'd like to read a part of Now Leucadia's rebuttal to this clip. Okay. The city is making efforts to improve safety along Vulcan by addressing maintenance issues. This is their obligation. In order to improve visibility in the compromised roadway that is heavily trafficked, the reconfiguration of parking is necessary. This is not a new issue, and the conditions on Vulcan have been discussed openly at council for years. The city has the obligation to maintain streets and address safety issues in the city. Public notice in the form of signage was provided in this area prior to the execution of this maintenance. When Mr. Bronner suggested that the city do what is best for us and ask us first, if us is the community, it seems quite literal that the city has done just that in the execution of this highly needed maintenance program. The Northwest Leucadia community supports this desperately needed maintenance project and supports our city's actions. I'd like to end this presentation with a couple of thoughts. In the past year, improvements to this stretch of Vulcan have been denied by 2 grants. I also know that the recent safety and mobility improvements near our housing element sites workshop is identifying priority projects, and I'm hoping that Project 3, the multi-use path along Vulcan, will be prioritized. My worry is one that I expressed recently with a city council person. I expressed that, yes, this maintenance program is certainly a first step in realizing a safer and cleaner Vulcan. However, Leucadians worry that years may go by before next steps are taken before we have a true pedestrian walking path for our corridor. I really believe that city leadership needs to champion a sorely neglected part of our city. It will be the continued advocacy of groups like Now Leucadia and a commitment from the city to get this developed quickly. With the development at Vulcan and La Costa will become with the development at Vulcan and La Costa, Vulcan will become one of the city's north-south fairways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Elena Thompson, Mark Maville, and then Sheila Cameron.
And do I just hit this to advance it? Yeah, right here. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Elena Thompson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here to talk about the City of Encinitas Municipal Code and the camping ordinance. My feeling is the camping ordinance, number 1, needs enforcement, and number 2, needs updating. And I would be happy to help the city update that. Today's reality, jumped ahead, requires local control on your behalf and action. The issue is that we're seeing the effects of homelessness in cities across the state, and nothing is new here, but we don't want to be caught up in that same situation in Encinitas. Even today, there was an article in the paper that our state capital in Sacramento is suffering from utter collapse from homeless camps. We have a growing crime issue in Encinitas and growing safety issues. And in the last couple weeks, I've witnessed myself multiple tent camping scenarios with homeless people and violence in my neighborhood in Leucadia. The Encinitas Municipal Code actually does deal with camping, and it does deal with sleeping in cars, as this lady just mentioned on Vulcan. However, as stated earlier, our municipal code is not being enforced, and I wonder why. While it's not being enforced, it does, again, need updating. And we should not be allowing any of the charities to hand out tents to the homeless. That flies in the face of our municipal code that needs updating. So let's talk about the enforcement of the code. So while we may not enforce our smoking bans and our gas-powered leaf blower bans and other bans in the city, we really do need to enforce the camping ban and the sleeping in car ban. And the residents and businesses are expecting this of you all. And that's why we have a municipal code and ordinances, right? Poway is the model for this. The city of Poway has put together a legal model that's been fully vetted this summer, and they have introduced a camping model or camping ordinance that is really robust, and I would encourage you all to look at. And I've provided the link in the handout for you. And that legal model of a camping ordinance actually has teeth. It's richer, clearer in its language, and very well defined. It also happens to add that paraphernalia and personal items cannot be left behind at campsites. And that would include needles. Obviously, we don't want needles in our city. So I would encourage us to look at the Poway refreshed camping model as we update our ordinance. In sum, if I may just finish, this is my last
Thank you.
slide. This is all about deterrence.
Right, and we're working to get our homeless shelter set up with the city of Vista, and that'll be key to enforcing our anti-camping, anti-car sleeping bans. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just reply to that and say that I did speak with
Okay.
leadership at Poway, and
It's okay.
we don't need to have that in place to enforce our ordinance.
Our
Thank
city
you.
attorney and others disagree with the city of Poway.
I'm going to give you a
Thank you.
contact at
Thank you.
Poway to talk to. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mark Maville, followed by Sheila Cameron, June Hansberger, and then Daniel Molitor.
You guys know who I am, Mark Maville. I'm just awaiting American Month or American Day. I don't get the whole thing. American working people, July 4th doesn't count, and Labor Day doesn't count, Christmas doesn't count. You know, I just don't get all that. And those things that they get, the land, pay the property taxes and pay whatever to keep that land. It's not yours, just automatically. Again, I'm going to bring up the outside dining. It seems like you guys have amnesia for some reason. You're just not writing stuff down. It looks like Bruce is, but haven't even started on it yet. Or, I don't know, maybe a memorandum went out, but that outside dining's got to go. It's just dangerous, period. I have my friends continue to ask me what's going on with it. You guys need to update everybody on what you are going to do. You're writing checks you can't cash. So that incident happened with the kid. Everybody was, oh, yeah, the media and everything, and nothing's been done since. So I don't know. I'm an action guy, so we'll see. Cannabis huts could have been cut off, an injunction with the state. We don't need that here. It just perpetuates an existing drug problem we already have. That's like just drug dealers in a building. They're doing other things besides cannabis and flavored whatever vaping. It's going to happen. And so I don't know. Maybe you can do something with Newsom. Newsom's a joke anyway, but you can try. The winter's coming, the drainage. It was an eye-opener watching all that last week. You got to do something before the rains start hitting. These poor people are just suffering. We need to have a cleanup day or weekend or whatever dedicated to cleaning up Encinitas and the back alleys and the back streets. You know, get that situation under control. The smoking ban is a joke. Go out there after Sunday mornings when I'm having to help with the church there. Cigarette butts are everywhere, vomits everywhere. So your smoking ban is not working. It's not going to. It's almost First Amendment, but I'm not a smoker. The biking, stealing crap dilemma, I've been through it. 3 bikes are gone. My last one has not come out for 4 or 5 months. The sheriff did mention about how to lock them up. Your bracelet wrapped around a pole ain't gonna do it. You gotta get a real lock, and a lot of it is immigrant, which needs containment. It's all motivated by that. I saw 4 of them running into Cottonwood, brand new bikes. Guy walking by me, $14,000 setup. I don't know. You can't even afford to feed yourself, and you got a stolen dog in the trailer. So that's just ridiculous. The tower situation, you got to stop that. Put it down in La Jolla where every height is kind of matches that. Not here. Those people were right about that the other day. I didn't even know that was happening. This transgender crap of 30 days to give them whatever.
Thank you.
That's unnecessary.
Thank you.
And that's being pushed away.
Thank
So
you.
it's the people's interest, not Sea Bluff. And I don't know if you've got an update on Sea Bluff. I'm sure they've broken ground.
Thank you.
But you know what? The people's interest, not tax revenue.
Sheila Cameron, June Hansberger, and then Daniel Molitor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do enjoy oral comments because it's the people who are speaking, and you really, really need to listen, take notes, make changes. It is curious how the mayor of Encinitas would make a special proclamation 2 weeks ago in favor of the harm reduction program. And I'm wondering if this city actually intends on allowing the distribution of safe needles in Encinitas for drug addicts who live here and are coming in and will come in droves all over North County. Cities of Vista, Oceanside, Escondido, Carlsbad, to name a few, are saying no to this. And if we're not saying no too, guess what? Our homeless problem isn't a homeless problem, it's a drug problem. We have drug people here. That's all there is to it. I don't want us to put a sign out that all drug addicts are welcome. If people want help, there are so many sources they can get it. The drug addicts don't. It's unfortunate that the laws in this country, they have to be changed because they give all the rights to street people, drug addicts, etc. They don't give them to us. I'm on this neighborhood watch thing online. The neighbors in Glen Park, they were teaching art. They can't do that anymore because there's so many drug addicts around. The kids aren't safe there, nothing. That little Glen Park in Cardiff. Also, within a year, they predict as many as 500,000 needles could be distributed in our region. Think of that. The leaders said they wanted to help communities deal with the drug issue by providing overdose prevention education, naloxone, a drug that reverses overdoses, and behavioral health and social support services. Yeah, we need all that. We need to strengthen our laws, though, so that we can put people in rehabilitation, put them on medication if they need it. And right now, we can't do that. There are some private entities that receive no federal or state money, and they can screen people, and they can help them in rehab and push them through programs. But as long as you get federal or state money, you can't do it. We need to change the laws. But most of all, locally, let's not be the city that gives out needles to everybody. We don't need that.
Sheila, Sheila, the one thing I wanted to point out is that the proclamation that we presented was Drug Overdose Awareness Day. We presented it to the mother of a young man who died of a drug overdose. It was all about Drug Overdose Awareness Day. It's a single day that's dedicated to being aware about the pains that are caused by drug overdose.
Yeah, I would know that because it happens in every family, Mayor.
The county is the harm reduction program. The city is not doing the harm reduction program. Thank you.
Well, you haven't joined the other mayors.
Make it clear.
Hey, my turn.
No,
you haven't
it's not.
joined the other mayors. You do that and stand up against it. I'll believe
We
it.
did the proclamation on drug overdose awareness.
Wow. Good evening. I'm June Hansberger, and I am here to thank you. I'm in full support of your efforts to clean up Vulcan and make it safer. Your maintenance project of relocating cement curb stops, posts, signs, as well as conducting vegetation abatement will enhance visibility for drivers, walkers, and cyclists, making it safer for everyone on the road. I just want to thank you because I have been coming and speaking in front of this council, which I think maybe it is only Mayor Krantz, who is still on the council when Chris Ryan, who is currently here with me as well, began speaking in trying to advocate for safe mobility along Vulcan, which was before COVID. And there was a time when every time we showed up, I think the council and people in the audience called us the Vulcan ladies, because we have been asking for safe mobility along Vulcan for years and years. This project is long overdue and so appreciated. I appreciate all of you for making it happen, all of city staff that is here that is making it happen. And I just also would like to join my fellow Leucadian neighbors in saying that it is disheartening when a few people who are not from Northwest Leucadia or even living within the city of Encinitas decide to speak against a project that they have not been advocating and listening to the whole community for years. So it is important. We need safe mobility. I also agree. I would appreciate a larger path and more safe mobility, but this is a great first step. And so I thank you this evening.
Daniel Molitor?
Thank you, Council. I have come to talk about bike infrastructure. I know there's been a lot of talk and some action on restrictions regarding e-bike use, especially in the wake of Brody's tragic death. And I know that's sad for all of us, but I want to point out that wearing a helmet didn't save his life, and neither did respect for the rules of the road or safe riding protocol. The only thing that could have saved his life is real bike infrastructure. 101 between Chesterfield and K Street is a beautiful example of infrastructure that works for all road users, including the most vulnerable users. El Camino Real is an absolute mess. It is a death trap for anyone on a bike. To save lives and promote biking, we need protected bike lanes and not increased enforcement. The 101 is also scary for bikers north of K Street. We need to rethink what this main street could be, including more space for people and not cars. We could make these few blocks downtown into wonderful plaza for hanging out and for kids to run around, or at least make it a much more pleasant place for outdoor diners by reducing traffic on the 101 with a road diet. And by the way, throughout the city, but especially on 101, the motorist noise from cars, trucks, motorcycles, and so forth ruins the atmosphere for anyone hanging out along the 101. When showboats rev their engine and tear down the main street, I can't believe there's not more pressure for more enforcement of our noise ordinances, because a quieter 101 would dramatically improve the quality of life along our main street. Thank you.
Mayor, that does conclude oral communications.
Okay, thank you all for coming to speak tonight. We did not have a closed session, so there is no report from closed session. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, item 8H has been removed from the agenda, and that item will be placed on the September 27th City Council meeting agenda. And then moving to the consent calendar, no items have been pulled by members of the public.
Okay, so that means we have item 8A through 8J with 8H removed, and I would entertain a motion to.
I'll move approval of consent calendar.
And, oh, go ahead, finish your comment, sorry.
As you just stated.
Yes, I will second that motion. I just want to make one comment about item 8F, and that is the at-grade crossings and the CPUC application. I just want to say that I'm excited that this is moving forward. The RailPro study showed average of 22 people per hour are crossing those tracks, where trains go by at around 90 miles an hour. And I hope we can move as fast as we can preparing that application. I know it takes a number of months, but I'll just encourage city staff to move as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments and would add that this is an important step that we're taking, but we should be clear about the challenges ahead with the CPUC and their attitudes on at-grade crossings. But I think that the study has justified the need for that. And so I am going to continue to advocate strongly and look forward to one day seeing those built.
I'd like to say something about a consent item, and that is 8I, which is the Safe Routes to School. And I just wanted to say thank you for all the public comment that we've received over the years for improved safe routes to school. It really does help with funding. And there are several really important improvements in this item in 8I for the Cardiff District, and I just wanted to shed some light on that.
Motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hensy absent.
Okay, thank you. So that takes us to our action items, and we will begin with item 10A, which is a public hearing to consider the FY 22-23 block grant CDBG program consolidated annual performance and evaluation report known as CAPR. And for the Community Development Department, we will hear from analyst Schubert? No.
Mayor
You're
Kranz,
not.
Analyst Schubert is out of the office. She had a grandbaby born on Monday evening,
Wonderful.
so she's out, and I will be doing the presentation
welcome.
on her behalf.
And I would like to take an opportunity to reintroduce the gentleman to your right, Carrie Kuziak, who is the new Director of Development Services. After a long service here in the city of Encinitas, you were in La Mesa, and now you are back to join us.
Thank you, Mayor Kranz. I'm very glad to be back and once again serving the community of the city of Encinitas.
Thank you. Ready to begin.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the public, and council members. Good evening. I'm Melinda Dacey. I'm going to be presenting the report to you all this evening. So the item before you tonight is the fiscal year 2022-2023 Community Development Block Grant Program Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, which is called the CAPR. And so some highlights from this last fiscal year included that a total of $165,000 was expended for the fiscal year, which resulted in assisting 528 Encinitas residents. 91% of the residents assisted were extremely low income. 213 unsheltered individuals were also assisted with access to services, benefits, temporary and permanent housing with the CDBG CV funds. And then we also have a capital improvement project on Santa Fe, which is currently underway. And to be more specific, 407 Encinitas residents received assistance support through the Community Resource Center's Social Services Department, including case management and the Food and Nutrition Center. Meals on Wheels served 73 seniors living in Encinitas for a total 7,585 meals delivered. Interfaith Community Center sheltered 28 community members from Encinitas. Legal Aid Society assisted 20 individuals from Encinitas, and they conducted 5 fair housing tests based on source of income discrimination. They held monthly fair housing webinars and distributed over 4,000 brochures electronically in English and in Spanish. The allocated CDBG CV funds, McAllister assisted 213 individuals, providing them with access to services, benefits, and housing. Our 3 public service providers were the Community Resource Center, Meals on Wheels, and Interfaith Community Services. They expended all of the allocated CDBG funds and general fund subsidy that was provided by the council from the last fiscal year. Our fair housing provider is the Legal Aid Society, and they expended a majority of their funds. The unexpended funds for last year will be reallocated to the CIP fund for this fiscal year. The bid for Santa Fe Capital Improvement Project was approved, and the project is currently underway. This project will be partially funded with CDBG funds for ADA sidewalk improvements. And then our CDBG CV funds allocated for homeless response were completely expended. We have an appointment with HUD to determine which remaining funds can be used and reallocated for this current fiscal year. And to conclude the presentation, staff recommends that the City Council approve the 2022-23 CAPR and authorize the city manager or designee to submit the report to HUD. And this concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Good, thank you. We're going to be following public hearing procedures, which staff just gave a report. We're going to have council disclose any other information they receive that's not included in the staff report. We're going to have preliminary questions. We're going to open the public hearing. We're going to hear from the speakers. We're going to close the public hearing, and then we're going to have council discussion and action. So with that, if you would please disclose any necessary.
Nothing to disclose.
Nothing to disclose.
Nothing to disclose.
And I have nothing to disclose. So are there any preliminary questions? No preliminary questions. So I'm going to open the public hearing and ask the clerk to call any public speakers.
There are no public speakers?
Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing, and now we move into the council discussion and action step. So seeing no requests to speak, I would move approval of the recommended actions.
I'll second.
Motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hensy absent.
Okay, thank you for the report. Carrie, I expect all your reports to be just like that.
I will do my best to assure they are. Thank you.
Okay, we are now on to item 10B, which a discussion of the financing for the acquisition of the property at the northeast corner of Highway 101 and La Costa Avenue in Encinitas, California, and declaring intent to issue bonds to be used to reimburse the city for expenditures prior to the issuance of such bonds. And this is for the property formerly known as Hippie Hill back in the day.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council members, and good evening. This item tonight will allow staff to begin on the financing of property at the northeast corner of Highway 101 and La Costa Avenue. Staff is seeking financing for the acquisition of property. So just a brief background on the property. The property is 1.43 acres located. Oh, I said that already, where it was located. There are two parcels which are zoned visitor serving commercial in the North 101 corridor specific plan. And then a large portion is protected environmental resources. No new development is proposed or anticipated. And this is important to know because it will be kept as open space and will be for government use. The city can issue tax-exempt bonds, which garners a lower interest than taxable bonds if the property was used for private or commercial use. And then, as you know, the City Council approved the purchase on August 9th for $6 million, and the purchase will be funded by a temporary transfer from the contingency reserve. This next slide shows the financing options that were considered before we decided on using lease revenue bonds. So the lease revenue bonds are this first item. They are not backed by the full faith and credit of the city, and instead relies on the city's general fund revenues. Cities are not allowed to issue this type of debt, and so what happens is they're issued through the Encinitas Public Financing Authority, which is a JPA for, and the city and the water district are members of, and which are made up of the council, as a board, though. And then what happens is the land will be used as collateral, will be given to the financing authority, and then the city in turn will lease the property. The debt service payments are considered the lease payments. So the good thing about this and why we settled on this, the process will take 60 to 90 days. No ballot measure or voter approval is needed, and interest rates are lower, especially because of our high credit rating. I'm told that we are financially attractive in the market. The second thing that was considered is a private placement with banks or private loans. That's a faster process. There are lower issuance costs, but the interest rates are higher, and there's a potential for acceleration of repayments. So we did not go that route. And then another type of municipal bond are the general obligation bonds. And that debt, as opposed to the lease revenue bonds, are backed by the full faith and credit of the city, including taxing power. And so debt service would be assessed to all taxable property owners on the property tax roll. This, though, would require a ballot measure with 2/3 registered voter approval. And the process is longer, will take 18 to 24 months. The city has not ever issued general obligation debt, and I forgot to mention that for lease revenue bonds, that's all we've issued except for the iBank loan. And then that leads me to the iBank. Staff contacted them. They were really good to work with when we borrowed money for the streetscape project. However, they do not provide financing for open space acquisition unless it's part of a larger infrastructure. So staff is recommending a lease revenue bond, or issuing a lease revenue bond. Financing will be approximately $6.3 million. We will require a professional team, including city staff, the city's financial advisor, bond counsel, disclosure counsel, and underwriting fees if necessary. We also are including the closing costs for the appraiser, realtor fees, escrow fees, et cetera. And then what we were quoted last week was a rate of 4.6%, with a repayment period of 30 years to begin this fiscal year. And those payments will be $386,000 per year. Our debt service payments are due in October and March. Since we'll be working on this debt financing in October, we'll only owe half of that for this current fiscal year. This is a schedule that you've seen before. These are the debt service payments on our debt. Like I said, we have 5 outstanding loans and 1 loan to iBank. And the current service payments are currently $5.2 million. When we add the $386,000, that's the brown bar on the top. Our new debt service amount will be $5.6 million per year. And then the city does have a debt service policy, and that's something that we review before we consider going out to debt. And that policy states that debt service, which are the principal and interest payments on bonds and notes paid each year, shall not exceed 15% of the general fund budget. And then we also like to ensure that we maintain our AAA credit rating. I hope that you're as proud as I am of that high rating. It's very difficult to attain and to keep. So it's important because it helps us save money on interest whenever we go out to finance debt. And so what the credit rating agencies like to see is that we're 7 or 8%, we're less than 7 or 8% of operating expenditures, which is the same as the general fund budget. I just used the wording we had in the policy. So this new debt will bring us to 6% of general fund operating expenditures. So we're way below our debt service policy. We are starting to bump up on the credit rating. And then this is a schedule that you've seen. This is what I presented in March during the budget workshops. And this ensures that we'll be able to make those extra payments of $386,000. So if you look at fiscal year 24-25, we've got $500,000 left, and then we have even more. It's the orange bars on the top. So that ensures that we can make those payments along with the other expenditures that we have. And then the timeline over the next 60 to 90 days is that the financing team made up of the city's financial advisor and bond counsel will start working on this financing. They'll do a detailed review of the city's finances. They'll work on the bond disclosures, the agreements, and then we will return to council with the financing plan before we issue the bonds. And then once that's approved, bonds will be issued. We'll go out to the market and issue, and they'll be priced. We'll close on the bonds, and then we'll return again to council for the approval of the finance documents. So staff is seeking approval of a resolution. This resolution declares its intent to issue tax-exempt bonds, and then it also starts the clock for us that we can be reimbursed for city expenditures prior to the issuance of such bonds for the last 60 days. So we've made our initial deposit, we've made a second payment, we've incurred closing costs, and that'll be included in the financing. And then the second resolution is to amend the budget to approve the purchase and include that in the budget from the contingency reserve. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any public speakers on this item? There are not. Councilmember Blackwell.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Thank you for that presentation. I thought it was really clear. I just want to say I'm really excited we're at this juncture, so I feel really great about that. I read all the comments that rolled in, and there were so many in support of what we're doing here as a city. So I just am thankful for the city staff for making this happen as quickly as possible and for figuring out the financing option that best meets our needs. So I would move to approve.
Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Thank you, Director McBroom, for such a clear presentation. Sometimes the financial numbers can come out kind of jumbled, but that I followed really well, and I think maybe most people would have
Willing to second?
would have followed. Yes, I'll second. But what I wanted to also say is that I've been happy to see this acquisition has received complete support, and it really goes to our strategic planning objective of expanding our open space in our community, and this is such a significant parcel to the community, so we're happy to do that. If anything, the feedback we've gotten is, can we do this more often? Can we really look at more open space? I do want to make a comment just for the public record, and this goes to one of our speakers' comments. Something I've always talked about when we have open space is that we have to look at our maintenance and management of it. And I know we do, but it needs to be an intentional investment of funds for the stewardship of our open space, and we continue to invest in that. So I just wanted to kind of let people know we're checking that box. Thank you.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Yeah, I want to thank staff. You answered all of my questions in that report. It was wonderful. Everything from how much, where the limits for the rating, everything. Can we get a copy of that? Could you mail that out to the council and possibly even put it on the website? Let's see, yeah, no public speakers. So motion and second, I'm good. Let's go.
Okay, I do have a question about the presentation. There was the bar graph that you had up there, not that one, the other one. And so on the bottom, there's reference to the Pacific View 2021. What is that?
So those bonds were originally issued in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
They were refinanced in 2021, so
Okay.
they're called 2021 Pacific View bonds now.
Yes, because we issued those bonds with the Moonlight Beach Tower at the same time.
That's
So,
correct.
That's why I was confused about the two dates. Okay, so I wanted to also follow up and mention that I, too, recognize the need to maintain the things that we build or acquire. And it's one of the reasons why I thought it was really important we did what we did with Pacific View. The operations and maintenance money does get in the budget, and we will have a conversation about how we're going to use this particular site, and then with that decision, we'll include the need to maintain whatever it is that happens there. And if it's an open space, then perhaps it's, native plants that we add, but I'm looking forward to doing it no matter what that ends up being. So with that, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries with Councilmember Hensy absent.
Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate the presentation. There are no informational items. There are no council member initiated items. So with that, we move on to city council member reports pursuant to AB 1234.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
I attended a San Alejo Joint Powers Authority meeting on yesterday morning, and we went through some of the projects, capital projects that are going to be under construction for the next few years. We authorized the hiring of a firm to manage construction projects and also provide the inspections for that construction, one of which projects includes the Moonlight Beach pump station and UV treatment facility. There will be replacing pumps there, so really important work happening, and a good group of people that are working on that. So with that, we move on to city manager reports.
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And city attorney reports?
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
City clerk reports. Okay, well, I would like to adjourn this meeting in honor of a gentleman who was a big part of the community, did a lot of great work as an educator. His name is Lloyd O'Connell. He was a board member of the Encinitas Historical Society and was crucial for the one-room schoolhouse, the 1880s one-room schoolhouse being preserved. I served on the board with him there. It was a pleasant experience to have a gentleman who was so full of knowledge of our community be a part of the efforts to preserve that history. It was kind of funny because when we were serving together on the board, I learned that he was the principal at Ocean Knoll School at the time when I was into kindergarten there. And it was important to make that connection because, believe it or not, one time I did get sent to the principal's office. Pardon me? In kindergarten? In kindergarten, yes. Yes, I did something that wasn't very nice, and my teacher was just that felt that I needed to make a trip to the principal's office. Fortunately, he didn't remember my showing up there, and I don't remember the actions that he took, so it couldn't have been a paddle. I would have remembered if I got swatted, so there's that. But he was a great man, lived in Leucadia for many, many years, and his health has been in decline for a while, but he has continued to remain active with the people that he knew and loved, and we're taking care of his treasured one-room schoolhouse. So for Mr. O'Connell, who did great work in this community, we will adjourn this meeting in his honor.